We have discharged our responsibility to the Nigerian people. It is for the executive to do what is needful. Has he prosecuted those who are indicted for corruption? And of course, there are several cases where we expose corruption. But isn't it our function? It's not our function to prosecute those who are indicted for corruption. That squarely rests on the executive arm of government. And we've been calling attention to this. We have been shouting on top of our voice. We've been drawing the attention of the Nigerian public. Sometimes I still feel that Nigerian people are very conceited. They are very laid back. They are very withdrawn. This cannot happen in many places without our people raising their voices. How many Nigerians have raised their voices against what he's doing, saying, listen, these issues raised by the National Assembly, executive will need answers, will need these things to be addressed.
One area where Nigerians will fault you, though, because the executive arm of government is saying that unless that bill is passed into law, we're still going to have all the leakages that we have. That's the PIB. It's been in the National Assembly for a while. It would seem that nothing is being done about it.
Well, first, the PIB is not one law that will cure all the ailments in Nigeria. It's not one law that will solve all the problems in Nigeria. Absolutely. It's a very important law. I believe it's a very important law. It's something that needs urgent attention, and I believe it's receiving attention in the National Assembly. But it's not one law that will solve all our problems. Absolutely not true. Now, even when the PIB is passed, it's going to be operated by human beings. Now, if these human beings are not responsible, if we don't address the cultural problems, the attitude problems, if we don't enforce the provisions of the law, we are certainly not going to get a different outcome. The only time we can get a different outcome is when those who operate the system commit to honesty, transparency, when those who operate the system commit to discharging their responsibilities according to law. The PIB itself is a law. Human beings must operate this law. If any arm of government continues in the current attitude we have, then there's no way we can make a lot of progress with the PIB. I agree with you completely that strong institutions is able to address the issue of corruption. Strong institutions is fundamental if we want to accelerate development, and that's responsible for development in other crime. Strong institutions, but human beings must build these strong institutions. These strong institutions strong institutions can only be a product of politics. Strong institutions doesn't just evolve on its own. It's very often a product of politics. I agree with you. The linkage between strong institutions, strong political institutions, and strong economic institutions. Until we get our politics right, we are likely not going to get the economics right.
Well, I think, I still want to take it from where Nyota left off. The issue of oversight is very important here. And if we're looking at the CBN, NNPC, FIRS, DPR, one wonders if the different committees in the House meet regularly to reconcile some of these oil liftings by the NNPC. Absolutely true. They do. You recall that not too long ago, the House Committee on Finance raised issues about remittance of funds, way and manner of remittance of funds by NNPC. That's been on the front burner for some time. But for some unknown reasons, he didn't get the attention he deserves. Now, the other petroleum committees of the House have been up and doing, both in the House and in the Senate. They've been up and doing. They've turned in a lot of reports, and most of these reports are in the custody of the members of the executive arm of government, ministers, the president. What has been done with these reports is a different matter. What's been the outcome of all these reports turned out, calling the attention to different aspects of the management of the economy, management of oil resources. And so we meet regularly, we raise issues, we raise fundamental questions, we discharge our responsibility. It is for the executive to discharge theirs. Tell us the state of the PIB, because we still haven't heard anything about that. We thought before the end of 2013 that would have been passed into law.
Well, the PIB, as you all know, is not just like our everyday piece of legislation. It is multifaceted. It's receiving very serious attention.
both in the House and in the Senate. It's gone to committee stage right now, and the House will have another committee where you have all members of the Oil and Gas Committee plus others. In the Senate, you have a joint committee. I am aware that extensive work has been done. It's in what we call the technical section now, trying to cross the T's, dot the I's, and do all the other final details, so that we'll get a law that will stand the test of time in Nigeria. PIB is not something we are likely to look at next year again, upper year again, every other year. It's not, and so we're taking our time to do a law that will stand the test of time. One assurance I can give them today, by extension Nigerian people, is that PIB will be passed to law by next year. We are committed to it. We appreciate its strategic importance. We appreciate the fact this got a lot to do with our economy, considering the fact that we depend on 80% of our national budget is derived from oil resources, and so we're giving it the attention it deserves. We are very committed to it, and there's nothing anybody's going to do about it. We're totally committed to the PIB.
Well, anyway, I think yesterday, we were actually brainstorming here, and one of us raised a point here. If the National Assembly has actually invited the NNPC countless of times, as you just also pointed out, and we still haven't heard anything from them, but for the very first time, NNPC is on television also explaining and speaking to the people. Don't you think that NNPC has actually been on course in terms of being on the side of the law? That is why they have chosen to speak up this time.
Well, the communication disconnected at some point, but I can from what I heard that NNPC for the first time was forced by the CBN later to come to the public domain to address fundamental issues that have been raised in the past, not only by CBN, by NATI, by the National Assembly. To that extent, you're very right. And the other strand ahead before the communication cut off is the fact that you think that NNPC is still on the side of the law. That's a different matter. Absolutely a different matter. When we put it on the crucible of legal examination or legal evaluation or constitutional evaluation, I am sure that the outcome will be different.
So what do you hope to see, since they say they have met with the federal government, both agencies, CBN and NNPC have met with the federal government. Are we likely to get to the bottom of it, or you think this would just be swept under the carpet and overtaken by other events?
If you ask me, there are two strands to it. One is the reconciliation meeting going on. Whatever is the outcome, the CBN letter will have achieved one thing. It has raised awareness among Nigerians on the need to question transparency issues in NNPC. Now, the second strand is the fact that whatever is the outcome of their reconciliation does not affect the investigation by the National Assembly on the same issue. You are aware that Senate has empowered the committee to investigate the same issues that CBN raised. I'm aware that in the House, the same issues are being investigated. Whatever is the outcome of the reconciliation will not affect the investigation by another arm of government. And so, while we wait for the outcome of the reconciliation, we still need to wait for the outcome of this investigation by the Senate and the House. But I am convinced that at the end of this process, Nigerian people will be better for it. At the end of this process, it will up the ante of request for transparency, accountability on the side of NNPC. At the end of this process, whether we like it or not, certain fundamental issues will be addressed. And indeed, it will affect the bottom line of economic inflow of funds to the national coffers.
Okay, Mr. Marco, if I'm coming. Mr. Peterside, yeah, fantastic. I love that statement you just made. Whatever the outcome will affect the economic inflow. Thank you. But now the question will be, you talked about how your job has been to expose corruption, leakages, and you've done this. You have reports that are aligned with the executive. Now, is it that you do not have a good relationship with the executive, or the executive does not care about the leakages and corruption in the system?
Now, your relationship with the executive, whether cordial or not, does not in any way take away the fact that the members of the executive are on oath to work for the Nigerian people. They are on oath to protect the interests of Nigerians. They are on oath to discharge certain responsibility. It doesn't take away that fact. Whether they like my face, whether it's black, whether it's white, it doesn't take away the responsibility they owe to Nigerian people. It doesn't take away the fact that they owe accountability to Nigerian people. It is not their resources. And now, what is the implication of that? Now, what you can do with the executive is to persuade them to respect the law. Because, of course, they have the instruments and paraphernalia to enforce the law. They've got the police under their control. They've got the military institutions under their control. Of course, they have other apparatus to enforce the law. They have it. We don't have it. And so even if you say this man has defaulted in a particular aspect of the law, what can you do? You must continue to shout. You must continue to draw attention. At best, you approach the court. That's the best you can do. Whether even when they approach the court and the court says, listen, this man has defaulted, this man should be sent to the prison, it's still the executive that will commit him to prison, that will virtually ensure that the man goes to prison. And so enforcement lies in the domain of the executive arm of government. We must compel them. We must compel them to carry out their responsibility. They are ought to do that, they are paid to do that, they are voted to do that. If they don't carry out their responsibility, we have right to vote them out.
Well, we'd like to thank you, Honourbale Dakuku Peterside, Chairman, House Committee on Petroleum Resources Downstream, for speaking with us from our Abuja studios. While Sunrise Daily takes a moment now, and when we return, join us again.